Asia Wilson, the MVP of the WNBA, the greatest player in women's basketball that nobody cares about. She was caught on tape a year ago.
Us as Black women, Paige reminds me a lot of you. Like, it's not really about me. And she knows how her privilege has gotten her to that point.
Preaching to, wagging her finger at, telling Kelsey Plum, her teammate, about her, white privilege and how Paige Becker understands it and blah, blah. Anyway, this old clip has gone viral this week.
And also, like, she's good at basketball, obviously. But, like, she understands her privilege and like, pushes her over the top, in a sense. It reminds me a lot of you.
What if I told you the fiercest rivalry in the WNBA has nothing to do with box scores or stat lines? In this storyline, Aja Wilson, the league's dominant MVP force, isn't just making headlines for her game. She's stirring waves after teasing a tongue-in-cheek reparations demand from Caitlin Clark, turning a playful jab into a spotlight-stealing moment. But beneath the surface, this fictional clash opens a much deeper conversation. Who gets marketed, who gets magnified, and how race shapes the spotlight in women's basketball? Suddenly, the rivalry isn't just about two stars. It's about the entire ecosystem around them. Drama on the court is easy. Drama about who gets the narrative? That's where things get real.
Interesting aspects of this fanhood is that some of the biggest supporters of Caitlin Clark are not whites. They're actually black males. But that's the issue, though. I don't understand this. Many of these people, like Asia, are so used to being able to dispense and force white guilt upon others. This has become, Jason, and tell me if you agree or disagree. This NBA playoff ratings dip post Caitlin Clark is the sports version of white flight and gentrification.
Picture this. The game is over, the cameras are rolling, and Caitlin and Aja are laughing together at midcourt. Two giants of the league sharing a moment. Then, out of nowhere, Aja drops a joking reparations line, and the whole arena freezes. It's bold, it's chaotic, and for a split second nobody knows whether to gasp, laugh, or pretend they didn't hear it. But the internet? Oh, it reacts instantly. Clips spread like wildfire, fans can't stop replaying it, players are chiming in, and within minutes, this tiny off-the-cuff joke becomes the headline of the night. What started as playful banter turns into the moment everyone in the league is talking about.
This thing was going viral, like you said, Jason, and I saw the comments, which I was liberally retweeting on Twitter. There should be a hashtag now, Stop Asia Hate.
Let's start there. Is that a compliment that she understands her white privilege?
I mean, what is she really saying? Like, hey, white girl, you know what, you cracker-ass cracker? You have a lot of white guilt, and I approve. But it's amazing. But this is the problem that a lot of people have with Caitlin Clark fans and supporters. They don't buy into it.
There's a lot more going on here than most people realize, and we're going to break it down. That reparations joke, it was never really about money. Aja's offhand line wasn't just a punchline, it was a spotlight. A way of playfully hinting at bigger conversations the league has tiptoed around for years. Because beneath the humor, the moment taps into a deeper truth. Aja has openly talked about the racial dynamics in the WNBA, how some players struggle for recognition while others explode into household names almost overnight. Her joke wasn't just a joke. It was a pressure valve releasing, a way of pointing at a real imbalance without turning it into a lecture. In other words, the comment went viral not because it was shocking, but because it struck a nerve the league has been quietly ignoring.
It was a message being sent to Caitlin Clark of like, you want to come into our league, this is how you need to be. And I think it's a message to Nike. I probably tend to think it wasn't even on accident. Knew she was being recorded, knew it would get out there. And it was, because I think this was a year ago, and it's gone viral now this week. Again, as I talked about last week, based off the Ethan Strauss deal, Asia Wilson has a signature shoe and logo with Nike. No one's gonna buy her shoe. So there's a mindset that Asia has to adopt to justify getting treatment she knows she doesn't.
Let's break this down. In this storyline, Aja Wilson isn't tossing out jokes for the sake of drama. She's pointing toward a real conversation that has hovered over women's basketball for years. She's long been vocal about how black athletes often have to fight harder for the recognition they deserve, even when their performance is elite. Coming from a two-time MVP and multiple-time champion, the message hits different. She's highlighting that success in the WNBA isn't only about talent. It's about visibility, marketing power, and who gets pushed to the front of the narrative. At the same time, Caitlin Clark's meteoric rise has become impossible to ignore. She's a rookie whose every three-pointer goes viral, every game draws massive online engagement, and every headline turns into a cultural moment. Her popularity has sparked questions from fans and analysts alike about how marketing works in women's sports, and whether race shapes who gets elevated fastest. Wilson has addressed this conversation more directly than most, stressing that it's important not to pretend race isn't part of the equation when discussing visibility in the league. Her point isn't that Clark isn't talented, far from it. It's that different kinds of athletes often receive different kinds of momentum, and that raises tougher questions. If several WNBA superstars have been dominating for years, why haven't they gotten the same national push? Why do some players have to win championships before the spotlight finds them, while others spark an instant tidal wave of attention? That's the bigger picture. Clark's jersey sales are breaking records. Her appearances are everywhere, and she's been a major part of the league's recent surge in ratings. Wilson, too, has become a leading face of the sport. Together, they've pulled more eyes onto the WNBA than it's had in a long time. And here's the twist. Wilson's comments, and the public reaction to them, have ignited conversations the league has avoided for too long. Conversations about fairness, marketing equity, and how star power is manufactured. So while the rivalry between Wilson and Clark is played up for excitement, the truth is that their contrasting styles, voices, and backgrounds might be exactly what pushes the WNBA into its next era.
When they're here, you don't like their presence. Oh my God, look at what they're doing. They're so awful. Then when they leave the Caitlin flight, oh my God, I can't. What do we do now? Isn't it the same thing?
Yeah, it's a good analogy. Yes, it is.
And these players that are now complaining, if there are any, about the ratings, about being abandoned. Well, wait a minute. So that has become something that for them, that word, problematic. And it's also set up a cultural debate on the other side of the street. Many of you were the very same ones that was pointing the finger and saying you're racist and we don't want or need your support. So in theory, you're getting what you want and you should be happy for the lower ratings. So be careful.
This conversation isn't just about who's the best on the court. It's about who gets to be the face of the league and why. But here's the truth. This isn't simply a Wilson versus Clark storyline. It's a question about the future of the WNBA itself. How does the league make sure every star gets their shine, no matter their background? And how does it turn this cultural moment into growth for everyone? All of that leads to one pivotal moment, Caitlin Clark's professional debut, a night that was packed with hype, pressure, and expectations. Picture it. The arena is electric. Fans are screaming, cameras are everywhere, and Clark steps onto the floor carrying more attention than any rookie in years. And her first game? It wasn't the flawless start people imagined. She dropped 20 points, impressive for a debut, but she also committed 10 turnovers, the most ever by a player in their first WNBA game. Sounds rough, right? But here's the twist. That performance only proved how massive her impact already was. Even her struggles became headline moments. People weren't tuning out, they were tuning in. That's the kind of gravitational pull that can transform a league. And when you zoom out, the bigger picture becomes even clearer. Clark's college dominance was undeniable, and now she's leading the WNBA in assists, threading passes like she's got a second set of eyes. She's scoring, facilitating, elevating teammates, and forcing the entire basketball world to pay attention. That's the heart of this story. Not one player versus another, but what happens when multiple stars, different backgrounds, different paths, different fan bases, collide to shape a league on the rise.
Charles Barkley talking about the Caitlin Clark phenomenon and the people he blames for blowing this whole Caitlin Clark deal.
People believe what we say on television. Just because people don't like you or your personality, they can't get on TV and slander you. It's just total bullshit. These ladies, and I'm a WNBA fan, they cannot have this Caitlin Clark thing up any worse if they try. What is going on here? And the thing I love about her, she never says a word. But these ladies, who I love and respect their game, they couldn't have this thing.
This is where the story gets even more interesting. Clark and Wilson couldn't be more different in how they play the game, and that contrast is exactly what makes their dynamic so compelling. Clark brings a style built on deep shooting, fearless drives, and wild playmaking that looks pulled straight out of a video game. She stretches defenses to the breaking point the moment she crosses half court. Wilson, meanwhile, dominates in completely different ways. She's a force in the paint, a two-way anchor, and a matchup nightmare for anyone unlucky enough to guard her. What makes the rivalry rich is that even Wilson has acknowledged how hard it is to contain a player like Clark. Clark's long-range shooting is part of what turns her into a walking highlight reel. She can pull up from 30, 32, even 34 feet and still knock down shots at a rate most players wouldn't dare attempt. Those bombs don't just put points on the board. They collapse entire defenses, pulling multiple defenders toward her and opening the floor for her teammates. And here's the kicker. She's not just scoring off screens or broken plays. She's creating her own looks, something most rookies struggle with against WNBA defenses. But Clark is out there making it look routine. 2 stars, 2 totally different styles. And together, they're reshaping what modern women's basketball looks like.
Caitlin Clark somehow wins the WNBA championship this year. She will have put together the greatest rookie season in the history of professional sport. Include Caitlin Clark in the conversation, as I like to do, but we're also going to bring the NFL, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Caitlin Clark, Deion Sanders, all in the same boat with historical perspective and knowledge. And more than anything, I'm gonna blast.
Don't get it twisted. Aja is still putting up historic numbers with very little help. She's dominating night after night like she always has. And that's what makes this moment in the WNBA so wild. You've got 2 megastars with completely opposite styles, both taking over the league in their own lanes. Clark is the electrifying newcomer blowing up scoreboards and breaking the internet. Wilson is the established powerhouse stacking MVPs, championships, and stat lines that don't even look real. One is the future crashing into the present. The other is the present rewriting history in real time. But here's the real shift. Beyond the highlights and the box scores, Wilson just dropped a truth bomb that the league can't ignore. The toughest challenge the WNBA is facing right now isn't a team. It's inequality. This whole Wilson-Clark moment isn't just 2 stars trading jokes. It's sparking deeper conversations about visibility, fairness, and what it really means to elevate all women in the sport. What started as a rivalry is now pulling back the curtain on the bigger picture and pushing the league into a conversation it can't afford to avoid anymore.
Shoe, whenever that is released, comes out, they ought to call it the air suppression. Because basically they are marketing A'ja Wilson by suppressing anything having to do with the most popular player in the league.
Since you brought it up, I'm going to touch on it just for a bit. The ratings, I believe 2 Sundays ago with Caitlin Clark, she drew 1.8 million viewers on an NFL Sunday. I really do. And I think moving forward, I think that number is going to, as the playoffs continue on, I think that number is going to continue to come down.
I wonder, this actually needs to be studied. What other sports league has diminishing ratings as you get closer to the championship?
Wilson's comments have sparked something the WNBA hasn't seen at this scale before. A full-blown conversation about race, visibility, and marketing. When a 2-time MVP speaks openly about how Black women in the league often have to work twice as hard to get half the spotlight, people listen. Her words pushed fans and analysts to confront tough questions about who gets elevated, who doesn't, and why. But here's where things get really interesting. Two of the biggest names in the sport are using this moment to push the conversation forward. Wilson is calling out long-standing disparities, and Clark is openly advocating for more opportunities, more coverage, and more investment across the entire league. So what happens if the WNBA decides to seize this momentum? Imagine the league doubling down on this energy, expanding its marketing strategy, elevating more players from different backgrounds, and telling stories that represent the full spectrum of talent in women's basketball. Imagine collaborations with groups focused on racial equity, new campaigns that highlight overlooked stars, and a shift in how the league presents itself to the world. If the WNBA embraces this moment, it could reshape not just how players are promoted, but how the entire sports world views women's basketball.